Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast in association with symcotraining. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Adam Wright. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, who's Adam Wright? And that's what this episode's all about. You see, we've been looking for a sales trainer for a while. And in symcotraining, it's always hard because there is a cliche, those who can do, those who can't teach, or those who can do, those who can't train. And the way we do our recruitment is we'll do the standard recruitment and we'll get someone else to go and interview the person there, and we'll speak to them on Zoom first, and we'll do some speed dating like recruitment. But what we do is we get the people to come along and present us or train us on something. Okay, it might be how to do a cash conversion. It might be managing staff. It might be selling paint and fabric protection. I don't care. Pick your best subject and just come along and train me. And guys, I got to tell you, Adam Wright blew me away. There were a lot of really good people, and so often you say, oh, it was a tough decision. Do we go with him or her? But let me tell you, there was just one standout that we heard, and it was Adam Wright. So Adam is our brand new trainer for symcotraining. Adam, thank you very much for coming along and joining us, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Skip. Nice to be here.
Now, listen, I want to talk a little bit about why I was blown away with what you actually did. And for people to get to know you, can I ask you, tell us about the young Adam. Did you always want to be in the motor trade, or what was like before the motor trade?
I'm not sure anybody got in the motor trade on purpose, to be honest with you, Simon. No, if you speak to my mum, I don't remember this, but apparently I wanted to be a vicar.
Okay.
Most of my childhood. I still attend church, not as much as I should, but I still go here and there. Then I got into golf. Then I got into music. But now I think if all of my passions was going to be, if I was actually going to be any good at any of them properly, I think I'd have ended up in the golf world, possibly. So I was good, but I weren't good enough, I don't think.
But listen, so the young Adam at school, was it from school age you wanted to be golf? You want to be the Tiger Woods?
Yeah, it was probably just a touch earlier than Tiger as well. I mean, he changed it and stuff, but it was sort of Nick Faldo, just a touch before that, really. And obviously being a Brit helped. But yeah, it was. I started playing when I was sort of 8 or 9. It got to a very good standard in my teens. My son, Lennon, he plays now. He's a good player and just keeps getting better and better. So yeah, I think I just wanted to be a golfer. But I also had a love for the written word. I loved all the new romantic poets. 2 of my children are named after poets. So I like the English language, let's say.
Okay, so, and you mentioned music as well then?
Yeah. I remember I was nearly 12, so it was 1995. This is, well, probably going to age my mum more than me.
Definitely showing age now.
Yeah, I was 11 turning 12, and the album Different Class came out by Pulp. And that just completely blew me away, completely changed the way I looked at things. I picked up a guitar, got into stuff I would have never have been in, started playing bass. I actually play guitar left-handed, which sounds strange, but I learnt in the mirror, which sounds completely backwards, but this foreign object was completely alien to me. So I, did that.
Wow, I don't play anything. Sorry, that's not fair to say. When I grew up, I learned how to play the record player. Then I
really thought you were going to say didgeridoo there, Simon. I was going to celebrate it.
No, not quite that one. Then I learned the tape deck. Okay. Then the CD. I learned how to play the CD really well, and now I've mastered this thing called Sonos. Okay. Absolutely got that. But so I don't play anything. Both my boys learned to play guitar, but playing left-handed, that's got to be really hard, hasn't it?
No, I actually know one song right-handed. I went through a stage when I was about 20 of really wanting to learn right-handed guitar.
Right.
because whenever you show up at people's houses, oh, you're in a band to this, I couldn't play it, and it wound me
Oh,
up a little bit.
sorry. So all the strings are the different way around.
Yeah, yeah, absolute opposite. Yeah, so you hold it the other way, so your top string's at the bottom if you hold it left-handed.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Jimi Hendrix is the only person who used to play a left-handed guitar right-handed, or the other way around. I can't remember. He used to play it upside down, and it's just, well, like having a bath with your socks on. It's weird.
Yes, fair enough then. Okay, so from music, cars, where does that come along? So it's not your passion. Sounds like golf and music were your passion. So how did you start in your working life? Did you start in the motor trade? Did you do other things first?
No, I actually worked for a hotel chain. They're no longer with us. A hotel chain. It's a hotel not far from my house, and also a wedding and party planner is what I did to start with.
Okay.
Just working obscene hours for sort of no money. And there was a couple of guys from what was the motor house used to come into the bar after work, a couple of drinks, and then I just sort of got talking to one of those guys, a guy called Chris Webb,
Right.
and he happened to be the collections department manager. It was a massive car supermarket, 1,000 odd cars on site, and he was a manager of the people that did the handovers.
Right.
We got talking one night when he'd had a couple too many, and borderline offered me a job, and I thought, let's go and do that. And
Okay.
that was my entrance into the motor trade.
So you started in one of the used car supermarkets then?
It was the first used car supermarket, I believe, for a guy called Chris Bowen.
Okay.
Very, very clever guy, from a similar neck of the woods to me. So obviously had a nice accent and stuff. And when
Okay.
the first time I actually met him, he was teaching a valeter how to use the mop on a bonnet. This is 2004, early 2004. Teaching a valeter how to mop a bonnet in a £5,000, I think it was Prada, but could have been Gucci, pinstripe, double-breasted suit, and just didn't take it off. And he had cut and
Everywhere.
paste all over him. It was everywhere. And I was thinking, what's he doing here? That's worth more than my car. Unbelievable.
But he didn't care.
No.
And I tell you what I love about that though. It sounds like he led from the front, showed people how to do it.
Yes. And that's something really that I've always tried to do.
And sorry, who was that? That was the owner of the.
Yeah, Chris Bowen, the original car supermarket. It was called the Motor House.
Okay.
He ended up selling out and for an absolute fortune, and going to South Africa for a couple of years on his boat.
Fair enough then. Okay. So you started there, you're in the handover team, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and that was it. I actually quite enjoyed the job. There wasn't a huge amount of selling involved. It was mainly just tidying up normally after the business manager. This was in the days where we used to get signatures on documents at handover, fax them across. Remember those? But we never got payout until the customer had already gone. They'd already left with the car, but because they'd signed the docs, they went.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's by the by. But yeah, and then this one time I copped for a pay slip off one of the sales execs who had the same initials as me. And I looked at that and thought, I need a bit of this actually, because it was about 4 times what I was earning.
Right. Okay.
Went and knocked on the sales manager's office right then and said, 2 problems. Number 1, I need my pay slip. And number 2, I want to work on sales.
Yeah.
I got you're not really ready. Do this, do that, do the other. The job I had was Monday to Friday. I offered to work weekends, commission only, to prove my point. I did that. They had a job come up and they gave me that.
Cool.
And that's how I got in.
So what age were you then, Adam?
I was 20. Yeah, I might have been 21, actually, thinking about it. Yeah, 2004, I've been 21 when I got on sales.
I got to say, people I've interviewed on the podcast, and I'm one of these people. I started washing cars for a living. I know Chris Wiseman, in his podcast, he mentioned about that. In fact, over the years, there have been lots of people started in either the valeting department or something like that. Did you find it gave you a good grounding for the whole business starting there? Would you change that again? Would you still go into the handover team or go straight into sales?
No, I'd go into the handover team, absolutely. It's always stood me in good stead. And one thing that I've always sort of not prided myself on, but I've always been, I'm not one of these people who was a salesman, then a salesman, and did this. I've tried to do every job. I've tried to sort of get involved. If the service department were busy and the phone's ringing, I'll pick the phone up. Yes, to start with, I was absolutely rubbish on the phone to service customers because I didn't really know what they was asking. But you learn these things, and I'm one of these that put me in the deep end, and I tend to find a way of keeping myself above the water.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always tried to do. And I do think that starting where you are, not you have the respect of everybody else, but you understand everybody else's issues. You understand everybody else's problems because you've lived them yourself.
It's like Chris in the pinstripe suit, okay, actually mopping, buffing the front of a car there. He's showing people how to do it. And the people who listen to this, I got to say something. And we've not had this conversation yet, Adam. You might not even know this, but what I love about your very first week on the job, you're shadowing one of our other trainers. You're in a Honda dealership, and they're talking about having to prospect, drag people back in to try and sell them the car. And straight away, Adam picks up the phone and says, I'll speak to the customer if you don't mind, and makes an appointment to get the customer come in. And we just absolutely love the show people how to do things. Let's just not tell them about it. I suppose you feel confident doing that because you've just done it so often. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, again, that's the way that I always wanted to be taught. We've all had a sales trainer come in who says, yeah, I did 3 weeks on the job and I did this and I did that. And you think, hold on. No. I've been a salesman. Nobody likes prospecting. Any salesman comes to me and said, yeah, I love prospecting in an interview. No, you don't. I'm fine with it, but no, you don't. Because who's going to love something that you're going to fail at most of the time?
Yeah.
Like you say, if you walk
Good
down
point.
the stairs and you fall over 95% of the time and you fall down the stairs, you're buying a bungalow. That's what you're going to do. You're going to take that out of the equation. So salespeople not wanting to prospect is absolutely part of the job, but prospecting is part of the job. All you need to do is just find a story or find a hook and find something to talk to the customer about. That's what sales is, isn't it? So.
Well, Adam, this really separates the true motor traders. Do you remember the first car that you sold?
I do. It was a Mitsubishi Shogun Sport. I even remember the guy's name. And he passed away 2017.
Wow! Not only do you remember the car, you remember the customer that well.
Yeah. I never got to go to his funeral, but I sold him 7, 8, 9 cars just to him, plus his family and stuff. He become a really, really good customer to me over the years. But he used to follow me, which a lot of the guys that listen to this will have that they phone you and say, oh, I need something a bit bigger, a bit smaller, I need an automatic, whatever it is. And he just become a really good customer. But because I had to build rapport, I couldn't talk about money. I couldn't talk about the car because I didn't understand the car. I didn't understand how things work. So all I thought was, let's talk to him because he's the most important one. And you can find some common ground if you just, like you say, if you pick up the phone or just talk to people. That's what this is all about.
But isn't it so true? There's 3 sales in any sale. You got to sell yourself first, the product second, and then the deal. And what you've done there is you're selling yourself first. And I do find, Adam, there's too many salespeople now are still trying to sell the deal first, the deal second, and the deal third. It may have worked 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we didn't have the stock and you could sell everything full up without having to try hard. But now we've got to get back to the basics. And I suppose that's just what you did then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But in 2021, you never had to sell the deal. You sold the deal. That was it. There was no,
that's true.
If you don't know, we've got a queue of people down the road who, it was like Boxing Day sales.
Yeah.
In Curry's, it was just, there was a line of people. If they didn't buy it, somebody else would. And it was, and I feel a bit sorry for these people that have been in the trade for 2 or 3 years because they've not known the old days. They've not known the grind. They've just know it's easy and think that's it.
I think those times are now. I think
absolutely
we're back to
they are. Yeah. 100%.
They really are. Now, this is a shameless plug for our first 90-day sales training program. We often say that the skills we learn in the first 3 months, good and bad, last with us for the rest of our life. Adam, can you think of anything you did in your first 90 days that was as relevant now as it was back when you started all those years ago in that handover team with Chris in his pinstripe suit, buffing a car?
It's something that I've had to really try to to not do throughout my career, because the most successful person or sales executive that we had there at the time was a very, very aggressive salesperson. It was, you don't want it. Why don't you want it? You told me earlier that it was fine. I've had to stop slipping into that. I'm not that type of person naturally, but that's the first thing that pops into your head. Somebody says no to you. What do you mean no? Oh, we're all right. The other thing as well was the P's. It's either the product, the price, or the person. As you said earlier, you sell yourself, you sell the product, you sell the deal. I had that backwards. I was trying to sell. I always blamed the person. So I thought, well, the deal's all right, the car's all right. It's got to be me. And I sort of pushed them into a corner to borderline sort of massage my ego to say, no, it's not you. You're lovely. We just not sure about this or not sure about that. You still see people do it now. And I still think that if out of practice for a long, long time, I probably would still do that. I think I'd get that the wrong way around. So that's something that's always stuck with me. On the positive side, thing that stuck with me, learned in the first 90 days, is just put in a graft.
Yeah.
Whatever needs doing, just do it.
Yeah.
That's it. If the validator's off and you need a car vacuuming, guess what? Vacuum the car. It's no bother. We know what we're doing. I couldn't service a car, of course, because there's other things. Blocking over a car. And it just, I think that gets lost. It's not my job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just no matter what you're wearing, as Chris proved, but it was, no matter what needs doing, it's going to get done today.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that story about Chris buffing down the car, mopping in front of it in the suit there.
I actually think, I might have it wrong, but I actually think it was my stepdad who ended up buying that car. I know that sounds crazy, but it was a black Astra with the X-Pack, the exterior pack that they used to have. And I'm pretty sure it was my stepdad that ended up buying that car. Weren't long with my mum and stuff, but I'm not 100% with that.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a black Astra with the X-Pack that Chris was mopping the bonnet on.
Well, it was definitely polished to an inch of its life.
Oh, absolutely,
the best job you could ever do. In fact, I was just on the phone to a friend of the show who's been on here, part of the Swansway group. There's three brothers, and I was just speaking to Peter Smythe. And when you talk about that, I remember once Peter walked into an Audi dealership, and there's a sales guy there, great sales guy, to be fair, and his shoes were not polished. They just weren't right. And he just turned around and said, hey, listen, retail's in the detail. From the age of 6 years old, it was my job to polish my father's shoes every night. Okay, come here, let me show you that. And he's like, right, what you need to do is, and the salesman said, oh, I'll just get a new pair of shoes. He said, no, you don't need a new pair of shoes. Mate, they just need a bit of elbow grease. Okay. And it's a similar sort of story there. And it's just, put the graft in. The other thing that sprung to mind when you said put the graft in, there was a social media post I seen last week where if you're listening to this later on, the Olympics had just been on in Paris. And they had a photograph of a particular race. I don't know if it was the 200-meter race, the 100-meter race, something like that. And it was a photo finish. And the difference between first place, the gold medal winner, and fourth, that got nothing, is 0.001 second. And they said the difference between the winner takes it all and fourth place, which of course is nothing, is minute. And I see the same thing with car salespeople all the time. We come to work for that, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You're there for long hours in the motor trade. Make the most of it. Okay. Don't sit there and not graft while you're there. Okay. Because the difference between the top salespeople and the people, I think they just give up it too early sometimes. They don't follow the customer the next time. They don't make that next prospecting call. They don't try and overcome the objection that one more time. They just almost give up and not put the graft in, I suppose. So you see that all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Could ask the question now. So talk to me about your management side of it. People who come to Symco training, they have to be at least a manager somewhere. A head of business is what we prefer people to be, like yourself there. But tell me about your management. You went from selling. Where was your first step into managing?
My first step into managing was with Bristol Street Motors at one of their Motor Nation sites. It was actually for a guy called Wayne Murray. I left the site because they promoted someone else front of me who I felt and other people felt didn't deserve it. So I was young. I chucked my toys out the pram, went somewhere else. I then got a phone call quite literally about 3 weeks later saying, look, that hasn't worked. It's yours, but come and have a chat. And yeah, and they'd had a bit of a move around in the Motor Nation division. So I sat in front of Wayne Murray and we just spoke about what to do. And in honesty, Wayne was a great guy. Taught me how to deal with customer complaints. The last listen, apologise, sort and thank. Just something that's again stuck with me for well over 10 years now. I stayed with Bristol Street for a while. I moved to Citron Burton as a business manager, become sales manager. Ended up without a GM, so I become branch manager, which because it was a satellite site for the site in Derby. And then I went for sort of Inchcape, Jardine, mainly worked at big PLCs until 2019. And I went to a family-run business in Halesowen called Halesowen Motorhouse. It's part of T-Wall Garages Group for a guy called Stuart Greaveson. Family-run. It was his dad who started it in the 50s. He's still the MD now. 3 of his 4 kids are in the business. And you learn a different way of doing things there because you haven't got all the resource that you had at the PLCs. You do a lot of marketing yourself. Yeah, and then I left there to become a general manager at a used car place in Stafford.
Someone listening to this podcast who's just going to take that first step into sales management, maybe an after-sales manager, what advice would you have for that person? What did you learn when you took that first step from being a salesperson into managing a team? Any advice you would give for someone listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, don't take a promotion because you think you're going to do less. You have to take the promotion to think you're going to do more. It's a different type of more, but you have to do more. There's so many times where you get one of your best 2 salespeople sat in a room who's going to get the business manager's job. You give it to the guy or girl on the right, and they become customer shy. They sit in the office. They've always got the heating on or the aircon in the summer, and they don't, and they don't succeed because they've lost what made them so good to start with. They've become they think it's going to be easy, and managing people and managing these people and these customers as well to be the people to feed your children, to pay your bills is a completely different mindset. And I think too many people still think, yeah, it's going to be, he just sits there propping deals and earns X, Y, Z a year. It's a completely different ball game.
Yeah, Dash Gupta was on the podcast a few weeks ago now.
Of course he was, yeah.
And it's something that really resonated. Lots of things he said, but something that resonated for me is, he said, in any senior management role, okay, I always think about, okay, I'm working for my team, okay? And I just thought it was great advice for anyone starting as a manager. You're working for your team, not the other way around. It's not they're working for you. You're working for them. What can I do to make your job easier, to sell more cars, to service more cars, to improve the parts department there? And I just love that mindset change there. So yeah, that podcast really did resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's a great episode.
It really is. So tell me, from management going into training, why training?
There's a couple of reasons, really. It's always been something that, well, it's been a big part of my day job for a long time, but not my day job. My thing has always been that you see so many people in the motor trade for whether it's 6 months, 6 years, and they've not had any training. When I started at Motorhouse in sales, yes, I had them couple of weekends, but nobody spent any time with me. What I had to do was stalk the big hitters and listen to the way they did things. All I got was, there's the car park where customers come in. There's the pitch where the cars are parked. You get your keys from that bloke down there. Oh, that's the phone as well. That was the level of my training. It was dreadful. This is back in the days where you used to open the doors on a Saturday morning and loads of people used to turn up because you used to put stuff in the free paper.
Yes.
But it never really sat well with me. And my thing has always been, if I'm going to take somebody on, especially new to the trade, which has always been my kind of thing, I like the cadet, the rookie salesperson, because no bad habits and whatnot. But you think, you know what, if that doesn't work, it can't be because of me. Some people, I'm not one of them, have always dreamt of selling cars and being in the motor trade and being part of it. I wouldn't want to sort of chew them up and spit them out by failing them, by not teaching them, by not helping them. And also, these people help pay the bills. If none of us do a good job, we lose our job. But I need the right training, the same as everybody else needs the right training. So that's always been a big passion of mine, is to make sure people know what's expected of them and help them get there, show them what good looks like. That's always been a big thing. So that's why getting into training has always been a thing I've been massively interested in.
Yeah. So can I ask you, you've been on lots of training courses in the motor trade. Let's not talk about your age there, but you've been on lots of training courses in OEM training. What stands out for you for a great training course, or maybe a coach who turns up? What really stands out of some of the great courses you've been on over the years?
I think it's involvement. And I think it's not just, we've all been on the training courses, which are death by PowerPoint.
Yes.
Where the trainer stands at the front and reads the slide behind him. And all I ever think is, I'm here for 2 days. You could have just emailed me this.
Yeah.
What am I getting from it? But I think the same as the sales process, make it relevant to me. With customers, you're giving them mental ownership. You're talking to them about when they're driving back to Northumberland on Friday, isn't it going to be nice to have the cooling seats or whatever it is? But make me think about what I'm going to do when I'm in the dealership. And I think, again, that mental side of it, make me picture doing this or doing that, or what I do in this position. Don't just ask me, but we're all asleep because you're reading the PowerPoint. It's borderline lullaby. So I think getting people involved is every great course I've been on, whether that's been as a manager that I've been watching or whether that's been as a delegate, every great course has always been from somebody who you actually want to listen to because they're involving you. They're not just sat there. They're not just reading a PowerPoint.
Yeah. Yeah, death by PowerPoint. We try, well, as you'll know, we try our hardest to avoid that because, listen, it happens. And I'm going to say there is a place for PowerPoint. An OEM training that you got to talk all about the different, the vehicles. There's so much technology in a modern vehicle. That knowledge has to be delivered, but there's a difference between knowledge and understanding. There's a difference between the skill, okay, of how to do something as to knowing what you should do. Darren Bedford, our sales director, actually really our chairman now of the company, he says all the time, the difference between knowledge and understanding is knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable. That's knowledge. But understanding is knowing you don't put it in a fruit salad. And I just love that philosophy.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. No, he's right. He's right.
He is right there. And it's, I suppose, so many times PowerPoint is just giving the knowledge, but it's the understanding that really hits home and making sure people use this stuff in the real world. For me, that's what makes that great trainer, someone that sticks to. Someone who sticks to it. It's sticky. That's the word I'm looking for. The training's sticky because, you know, we always say there's a danger of any training. You train people 1 month, they forget it the second, and the third they go back to doing what they've always done, or they get sacked. Our job is to make sure it's sticky. They understand it, so they use it. The more they use it, the more cars and after sales they sell. The more cars and after sales they sell, the more they book us again. So from your experience, has anyone inspired you along the way?
Yeah, I think Chris on day one was obviously a big one.
Yep.
I've worked for some brilliant managers. Every time there's a guy called Frank Kent that I worked for at Jardine. I think one of the big ones when you get sort of high up, I actually bumped into him not so long back. A guy called Dale Wyatt, who runs, as you'll know, runs Suzuki. Yeah. And I've worked with other OEMs that will rename nameless, let's say, and they come in, they won't give you the time of day, they keep everything locked away, they don't give you any information. What I found with Dale and Dave Cately, who's his number two, any decision they make, I mean, during COVID, I was at a Suzuki dealership as well as a Vauxhall dealership, and during COVID, they took money off us in bonus. But what they did, they told us why they were taking money off us. They told us how they was taking money off us. They also told us how we could make it back. There was no, we've put it in a small print, so you've got to find it yourself. Just very open, and just a really, really great guy to listen to. Really inspiring, and again, just you hang on his every word. And there's a few people like that in the motor trade, of course, Simon.
Yeah, I gotta say, Dale, again, with these podcasts, we see so much evidence how many people listen to the podcast and so forth. And his podcast was one of the ones that was shared so many times to other people because he's just such an inspirational person. And we have Dale booked to come back on again and give me his second part of his life story there. And
Fantastic. Look forward to that.
He's great. He's absolutely great there. Okay. So listen, with all the OEMs that you've dealt with, okay, you talked about what stood out positively there. What about the downside? And without naming the OEMs there,
no, of course, yeah.
More
of course.
importantly, not the OEM, but anything that they do, the managers there that really frustrate you when you're head of business, when you're running the dealerships.
I think a lot of it is not just keeping you in the loop. I mean, with one of the OEMs, we was chasing a new car number. It was a September, actually. And then we was at the point where we only had 2 spec of car. We sold out of one of them. Again, if I told you what car it was, he tells you what OEM it is.
Yes, yes.
We only had 2. We had an order bank for 5 or 6, couldn't find the cars. They then come to us and says, this ain't happening. You need to get them into the lower spec car. So we ended up having one cancel. We sold the other 4 or 5, I can't remember if it was 5 or 6 in the end. We sold the others the lower spec car. 3 days later, they then release 60 out of the higher spec car. And you think, well, you haven't just forgot you've got 60 cars sat somewhere. I know they're not a fleet deal because we've had the conversation. Why not just be straight with us? We're all meant to be pulling the same way, peeing in the same pot, wherever you want to put it. We're all meant to be customer facing and doing the best things for our customers. And I just felt with 2 or 3 different OEMs, really, it really did feel from a dealer's point of view that we just weren't pulling in the same direction. And it was us versus them versus the customer, which it can't be like that. It can't be like that.
Adam, I'd love to get your views. We know that people listen to this podcast now. In the UK, we had the disruptors. Alex Chesterman started along with Kazoo, and I think it's one of his biggest failures he's ever had. 7.5 billion, was it, or 6.5 billion, and they shut down 2.5 years later, I think. A lot of these other in America, you've got Carvana, all these people saying, listen, car salespeople, they're dinosaurs, they're going to be a thing of the past there. You've got a lot of manufacturers look at the agency sales model. We as car salespeople, I want to get your views. Are we the dinosaurs? Are we going to be around here in 10 years' time?
Absolutely. 100%. People still buy from people. You just have to be the right person. And we will always need that final touch. We will always need that person. I mean, you look at Carvana, for example. Yes, they're doing well. You looked at Kazoo. In theory, that should have been brilliant. It was never going to, because in the end, people can order a car online. People can do the finance proposed online. But at some point, they still want to pick up the phone and say, no, it is £350 a month, is it? It is this. It is this. They still need the human touch. They still need that. I don't trust the computer. I want to talk to you. Because if you can look me in the eye, the computer's not going to. So I think absolutely we will. But I also think that over the last, well, certainly since COVID, we've changed. But I think we had to change. And I think what Alex Chesterman did was just make us change a bit quicker. One thing that impressed me in the sort of during COVID and the 6-12 months after COVID was just how much the motor trade and just how flexible we were. And I'd love that. That probably made me prouder to be part of the motor trade than I ever had been before, I think. Just with how we managed to switch it round and not deal with Kazoo, but just make sure that they can try and disrupt all the like. They're not taking it. Yeah. I just think we're always going to be part of that process. And I think with the agency sales model coming forward with OEMs, I think people are going to be more important. Yeah.
If it's going to be exactly the same here, listen, if someone in head office is going to decide what the trade-in price is worth, and I know there's lots of dealer groups in different parts of the world we've been speaking to recently, nervous about this. And again, if you listen to this podcast, go back and listen to James Vortman. He talked about the agency model in Australia and what's happened with the Mercedes dealers out there. Bit of an eye-opener, some of the stuff there. I know that it's at different levels around the world. It's actually a tide that we're not going to stop. It's coming, but I do believe that we as salespeople are going to be almost more important because you can't just buy the business to be better by, hey, let's just erase to the bottom there. So actually, we really do have to make sure that the customer selling skills are there. I still think we're going to have people who need to ask for the business. Still going to have to raise desire in the product and make sure it's Adam that I want to come and buy from, not someone else.
Yeah, I agree. I think some car salespeople are dinosaurs, and I don't think they're going to be around. I think the role has already changed, and I think it's going to change again.
Yeah.
But the human race is still going to be part of that process, no matter what.
Yeah, that technology can change in a heartbeat, but human nature does not. If people wanted to shop around 30 years ago, they want to shop around now. But 30 years ago, they had to jump in their car, get their Thames Valley Auto Trader magazine, okay, circle them, and you could drive to High Wycombe or Amersham or maybe Reading, and you'd be fed up. Now, if they want to shop around, hey, they can do that online and go to lots of different places there. But the nature as to why they want to shop around to start with, that doesn't change. That people didn't feel like they were getting the right service to start with. So it'll be interesting to see how the whole agency thing plays out. And we're there now, okay? With EV vehicles, the vast majority of them are there. The Volvo dealers out there at the moment, the ones I talk to, are loving what agency's doing for them. So it's we just got to look at how we deal with it.
Yeah, I think the ones that are sort of okay with it now, I think are going to be the ones that were very sort of your business lease based, because not a lot is changing for them. A lot of it is done online. A lot of it is done via email. I think the retail market are the ones that will be taking a hit, and that's why not everybody's got an agency, because I think some of the OEMs realise that.
It's quite interesting. Some big players like Dale Wyatt, you'll know, listen to his podcast. He is not for agency at all. And he said, Suzuki, welcome to do it, but it won't be with me. Okay. I had a meal with managing director of Toyota UK, Scott, and he was just talking about the pros and cons of agency, and without giving away too much there, let's watch his space there, but there's lots of OEMs, I should say, that won't be going down that route. Be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Now, listen, going forward, you're sitting in the car all the time, okay? In this job, you sit in the car lots. Whose podcast do you listen to? Who do you reach out to? Do you get any information, any good tips out there?
Well, it's obviously yours, Simon. Is number one on a Thursday morning. I've got to say that he pays me, by the way. Yeah,
yes, there's a little disclaimer there. Okay.
In honesty, no. I like an ebook. Okay. Is what I tend to go to. I do listen to Stephen Bartlett's podcast that was recommended to me by yourself, actually, Simon. I've started listening to that. I used to listen to the Frank Skinner podcast because he used to be on Absolute Radio on a Saturday, but ageism, and he's no longer in that job. But I like an autobiography.
Yeah,
I like a bit of real world, so I do that. I keep threatening to learn another language while I'm in the car.
What would you learn?
Probably Spanish, because that's where we end up on holiday, isn't it? So I'd probably end up with Spanish, I would think.
You should have gone Australian. Okay,
yeah, you know what?
I'm still trying to learn English.
Yeah. I know a couple of words. You just drop a few letters off the word good, don't you?
Yeah, that's it then. So listen, who do you think we should be getting on the podcast next? People out there we should be getting on it.
I think that Dale Wyatt coming back on. I think he's brilliant. I would have said Dash if that didn't happen the other week. I think Peter Waddell from, formerly from Big Motoring World, I think would be brilliant to have on the podcast. He's got a lot to say, and he says what he thinks, which you might have to do some editing maybe. But anyway, it's hard to sleeve, and I like that.
Not on this podcast. There's always a little E beside it, and I did ask Rob one day. So why do all our podcast episodes have E? And that's because I bloody swear too much. Fuck off. No, I don't. But yes, apparently I do. So Peter will be fine there. We don't have to beep anything out.
Fair enough.
Okay, we don't have to do that. Hey, listen, all I need to say is two things. Adam, welcome aboard. Okay. I know that people when you turn up to the dealership, you've got a sales coach, a sales trainer who actually knows the job, has passion for the job. This is the guy that actually will pick up the phone. He will speak to the customer there. And if you'll just learn so much. I've been blown away from him by his first presentation, what he's done, his passion for the industry, and how he will roll his sleeves up and get involved. So Adam, I want to say welcome to Symco and thank you for coming on the podcast.
No problem. Can I just say one last thing, Skip, if that's all right? Number one, thank you for this opportunity, and I'm absolutely going to make the most of it. And number two, my 13-year-old has been asking me to come on this podcast since I first started talking to you. So Lennon, hello. I am going to have to say hello to my wife, Abby, and then my other children, Keaton, Jarvis and Blake, who won't be listening. But just in case they're caught for it, I better just say hello just on the off chance. But I know Lennon, my 13-year-old, will listen to it.
Lennon, I've got to apologize. That naughty word that I just used there before. Okay. I didn't believe he's going to listen. I didn't think about this. Okay. We've got to be careful on that one there. Okay. I'm gonna be in trouble. Wash my mouth out with soap and water there. Lennon, it's not big and it's not clever. Okay. How do people get hold of you? What's the easiest way to find you? On LinkedIn, Adam, how do we get you?
Yep, LinkedIn, Adam Wright, or my email address, adam.wright@symcotraining.co.uk.
Nice and easy. Listen, thank you very much for that. And you'll be on the podcast again, lots.
Okay, Skip, look forward to it.
Yep. That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, symcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.